If the parties are ready, court reporters and interpreters, then we may proceed. Good afternoon, Mr. Aven.
Good afternoon.
You have witnessed several of the prior examinations, and although I believe you have likely heard me mention the process for the prior witness, I will nonetheless state these for the record. There will be a brief examination on the part of the team for claimants, to be followed by cross-examination on the part of the counsel to the Republic of Costa Rica, and then a redirect which may be made by your counsel. The tribunal may at any time make any questions of you. I would ask that your answers be first to address the questions that is presented, and you may thereafter, as you have witnessed, make clarifications at a later time. If you do not understand a specific question, please do not doubt in making sure you do and ask any clarification from the person making the question.
Yes, sir.
And before we proceed, I would ask you to read the statement as to your responses, how you will conduct yourself in the examination.
Okay. I solemnly declare upon my honor and conscience that I shall speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aven.
Thank you. Mr. Aven, you have a file in front of you. You already have it open. We need to go through some matters of verification. Now, at the top of that file, before the numbered tabs that run down the right-hand side, you should find copies of your two statements in these proceedings. Now, the first thing to do is if you could take the document at the top, which on my copy is entitled First Witness Statement of David Richard Aven, I'd like you to inspect that document and flick all the way through to page 81, which is the final page, and let us know if that does indeed appear to be a copy of your first statement.
Yes, it does.
Are there any changes, corrections, or amendments you wish to make to this first statement?
I don't know if there's a date that I want to change. I don't know if it's in the first or second, the April 1st date.
Well, perhaps you could explain the correction, and we might be able to locate where that goes.
Okay.
Just explain. And
there is a April 1st date for a document that I think it.
If you could speak up, Mr. Aven,
Yeah.
both for the benefit of those in the room and for the transcribers who are taking a record of proceedings.
There was a document that I believe went back to 2002, where I put an April 1st date in there, 2002, and it should have been April 30th, 2002.
Okay. So this is one of the contracts, I think.
I think it was one of the initial purchase agreements or whatever.
While we're dealing with other matters, we'll find the appropriate reference in your statements, and we'll take you back to that. But thank you for flagging that. Are there any other corrections or amendments you wish to make?
Yes, a reference that I made regarding the fact that Juan Carlos Escobar owned 49%. I want to change that to say Juan Carlos, at all times, Juan Carlos Escobar owned 49% or more, or that of the concession, or that Paula Murillo owned the 49% or more interest in the concession at all times.
Is there a paragraph number for that?
I'm not sure,
Okay, again, we'll...
but
we'll
if they ask it, that's what I'm referring to.
Understood. And we'll endeavour to find the references and
All right.
take that back, take you back to that. Subject to those comments.
Sorry, can I interrupt? I think this is material evidence that's being offered, so I would like that to be clarified on the record, not just in the event there's a question on the cross. If this is the testimony in chief of the witness, we need to have that very clear on the record, sir.
Yes, this relates to ownership in the Canicula company.
La Canicula, yes.
Okay. Could you please clarify what the statement you wish to make with respect to ownership? Who owns 49% of the
There's a
company?
statement I made in my statement that Juan Carlos owned at all times 51%. All right? And after he, then I want to change that to say, at all times, Juan Carlos owned 51% or more shares in La Canicula. Or, after he became, resigned from that ownership, then at all times, from that time on, he resigned or taken out of the share book. Paula Murillo owned the 51% or more interest in La Canicula.
So, at all times, he has owned the percentage that you have stated.
Say again?
At all times, he has owned the percentage that you have stated.
The 51%. There's a
51%.
There's a claim by the respondent that alleging that at some point in time I was the owner of that those shares, which is not true. So I made a statement in there somewhere in my witness statement that he owned at all times he owned 51%, and I want to just clarify 51% or more.
So you may wish to refer to paragraph 37 of your second statement. We'll come to that shortly. So don't go there just yet, because we're just still on the first statement.
Okay.
But we will return to this in a moment in order that we get your primary evidence correct on this point. Okay. So still in the first statement, subject to the comments you've made, but will, I hope, satisfy you when we look at the second statement. Are there any other matters you wish to raise by way of correction or amendment in the first statement?
No.
Looking at page 81, is that your signature?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Now, if you could go behind the white tab. Now, the Spanish and English versions of your second statement appear in the opposite order of the first. So what you need to do is you find a blue page, and behind that blue page, you should find a copy of the original English version of your second statement.
Yes, I have it.
Could you go through the same process quickly? Just flick through, check whether that appears to be a copy of your statement. I'm going to take you back to a couple of points with respect to the matters you've raised.
Okay.
Okay, now, if you could turn to, first of all, to paragraph 27, which begins on page 6, continues over to page 7 of that second statement. you referred a moment ago to the date April 1, 2002. You'll see in this paragraph there are two references to that date. Could you just read the text of that?
Which paragraph is that?
27, beginning on page 6.
Okay.
Read through the whole paragraph. If you're satisfied that that is the point at which you need to insert a corrected date, let us know. If it's not, we'll find the right place for you.
Yes, we entered into a purchase and sell agreement with Mr. Monhay to purchase all shares of La Canicula from him upon payment for the purchase of the non-concession property. The title was transferred by Pacific Park Condo on April 1st, 2005 to Inversionist Costa.
So that's 2002.
I'm sorry, 2002.
Yeah.
And as a result, the U.S. investor owned the entirety of both La Canicula and Inversionist Costco as of April 1st, 2002, including three properties mentioned above. Costa Rica is required that 51% of a concession be owned by Costa Rican, and from the very inception until today, a Costa Rican has owned 51%, despite Costa Rica's suggestion that we owned 100%. So we just want to change that to 51% or more.
So, so should the, first of all, on the dates,
Oh, I'll change that, yeah, April 30th, 2000.
so is that correct? Both of those April 1sts should be April 30s.
Yes,
And is this also the paragraph in which you seek to insert the words or more after 51%?
yes,
And there are two occasions in which you use 51%. Does the insertion apply to them both?
yes.
Okay, thank you. Could you just go down on that second point to paragraphs 36 and 37? Just over the page on page 9.
Okay.
Could you just read those paragraphs to yourself? No need to read them out, and let us know if there is any change that needs to be made there.
Again, where it says at all times that Costa Rica National owned a 51% interest, there should be 51% or more interest in the concession.
Yep. Again, you need to speak more clearly, Mr. Aven, for the
Okay.
benefit of the record.
You want me to read paragraph 37 as well?
Just read it to yourself. Again, if there is a need for a change, you need to indicate that.
Again, the above held the 51% or more concession interest on the trust for U.S. investors until 2005, at which time Paula Maria, Costa Rican national, was appointed to hold that 51%, and Ms. Murillo has held that 51% interest from 2005 until the present. That's we can leave that alone. That's good.
Okay, thank you very much. Subject to those changes, are there any other corrections or amendments to this second statement that you wish to make?
Not that I know, but let me reserve the right to, if I see something on the fly here that is incorrect,
Okay.
I'll change that as well.
If you could turn to the last page of that second statement, which is not numbered, but it's the 50th page.
Okay?
Is that your signature?
Yes.
Thank you. That completes the formalities. But just very briefly, I wanted to ask you a question or two. I don't think you were in the room, but did you witness the opening statements made in these proceedings?
Yes, I did, and I wasn't here Monday or Tuesday because I was suffering from severe migraine headaches, and maybe some of you saw I had these blue glasses on, and was prescribed by my doctor because the blue filters out the white light that triggers the migraine headache. So I wear those all the time. I'm not wearing them now because you suggested I wear these, which I appreciate. But so I took a couple, and I'm taking medication for those migraine headaches. I'm also being treated for PTSD by a doctor. The letters in evidence after the attempt at my life in Costa Rica. And basically, my life is quite different now than it was when I moved to Costa Rica because of the happenings down there and the developments, the unfortunate developments that occurred in that country. So I did hear, but when I was in my hotel room, I did see some of it, but I heard a lot of it. And I was very dismayed when I heard the counsel for the respondents, what I could call was attacked me quite viciously with respect to my engagement in duping the country, committing all kind of crimes, illegalities, and that's very hurtful, and because none of it's true, and I want to categorically reject all of those accusations, and I would like the panel to know that there's a number of investors that like buyers, okay, and they purchased nearly $2 million in lots from us, and there's another two investors that put $900,000 into the project, and because of the illegal shutdown, we are liable for that. One of the investors, I got sued by one of the investors, and I settled with him under the representation that this wasn't our fault, and therefore we are committed to returning those monies to the investors. I could have been facing 20 lawsuits right now, and I want to thank the investors and also the people that are watching live streaming it. And this is why you have to be careful with accusations you make that are false. That it went out on live stream all over the world that I'm a criminal, again, picking up the mantra that Mr. Martinez started in 2011, and continues to this very day. And I got numerous calls that day, Monday and Tuesday, from buyers, from family, from friends, saying, "What's going on? Are you a criminal?" I mean, it was so embarrassing to have to listen to those people, and a lot of them were angry that they thought I deceived them. So everybody out there that's listening to this stream, I'm categorically denying that the charges of the Respondents' Council that I engaged in any criminal activity. And I want to again confirm that it is our full intention, if we prevail, to return all the monies to the people that invested in our project, because they were collateral damage. We received the bomb, right, that went off and destroyed the project. But all those people that invested, those people that put their hard-earned money into this project, lost it as well. Nobody's talking about that, but that's a reality. And the U.S. investors are made a promise that we want to return those funds with interest. And so for everybody listening, and there's many of those U.S. investors that we gave those links to, and our friends and family that are listening to this, and we want to make that commitment that we intend to return their money, because it's not fair that they lost millions of dollars because of a project was illegally shut down. So, one more thing. When James Comey, in July of this year, dismissed the criminal charges, or didn't charge Hillary Clinton with the crime. He said this. He said, and I'll never forget it because when he said this hit me hard. He said, "The most valuable thing I have is my family and my reputation." And my family's back there, some of them. My friends are back there. And my reputation is in shatters because of what this respondent government has done to me. And I'll never get that back. So I just want to say again, categorically deny all these charges I heard when I was listening to counsel for the respondent. And I think you should be more careful with your words, because words do have meaning and they do have effect. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have no further questions for Mr. Aven at this point.
Mr. Leatley?
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Mr. Aven.
Good afternoon.
My name is Christian Leatley. I'm appearing here on behalf of Costa Rica. I'd like to ask you a few questions in relation to your two witness statements you provided in this arbitration. In paragraph 235 of your first witness statement, you say that you left Costa Rica in around May 2013. Is that correct?
What
Yes. Your first witness statement,
page what?
paragraph 235.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You look at the last line of paragraph 235.
No, you're right. Yeah, it's the back here, right? Okay.
So it should be.
Yes, that's correct.
And you travelled to and have remained in the United States ever since that time. Is that correct,
That's
sir?
correct.
And in around September of 2013, you listed yourself as having the address in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. Is that right?
Where is that located?
That's in your notice of intent to submit a claim to arbitration.
Yes.
And nowadays, am I right in thinking you reside in the Clearwater, Florida area?
I'm not saying where I reside because of my safety concerns.
You're aware that your testimony here today, sir, is of potential impact on any criminal proceedings that are taking place in Costa
Is
Rica.
potentially what?
You're aware that the evidence and the testimony you're providing today could have potential implications on your criminal proceedings in Costa Rica. Is that right?
I'm not aware of that. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not a criminal lawyer, so I'm not aware of that.
Okay. You don't speak Spanish, do you, sir?
I do not.
And all the officials you've dealt with in Costa Rica only speak Spanish. Is that right?
No, I would say not all of the not all of them. A lot of them do speak Spanish or do speak English.
Then let's work through. So does Ms. Monica Vargas does she speak English?
You know what? I don't know, because I never spoke to Monica Vargas in my entire life.
Does Hazel Diaz speak English?
Never spoke to her either.
Does Mr. Luis Martinez speak English?
I don't think he does, no.
So all of your dealings with advisors, to the extent you had any direct dealings, have been filtered through other people?
All of my dealings with who?
With,
These three people?
for example, yes.
Well, I had no dealings with Helen Diaz that I know of.
Hazel Diaz.
Hazel Diaz. I don't really remember much interfacing with Monica Vargas. And the only one of the three that you mentioned, Mr. Martinez, to my knowledge, does not speak English.
So all your communications to them would have been through somebody else, and all the communications from them would have been through somebody else. Is that right, sir? Because you don't speak Spanish.
Well, you keep saying from them. Is it from them that I hear?
Well, from
him.
Well, let's take Mr. Martinez as an example.
Yes, him. The only time that's true. It had to be through an interpreter.
And the communications and the correspondence that you received in Spanish would have had to have been translated by somebody else, correct?
Yes.
And would that have been translated to you in writing, or would it have been translated in oral communication?
I would say generally in writing,
Generally in writing.
yes.
But those English translations haven't been provided in this arbitration, have they, sir?
English translations of what?
The documents we're referring to, your communications that have been received from various entities, you cannot read. So we've just established that you would have had to have them translated, and you said that they would be translated in writing. And I'm asking you whether those documents have been submitted in this arbitration.
If you have a document that you want to refer me to, I don't recall off the cuff. You're asking me questions that happened years ago. So if you have a specific question about a document, then I'd like you to ask that question about a document.
Have you been involved in this arbitration with your counsel, sir?
Yes.
Are you aware of the disclosure phase in July of this year, sir?
Yes.
And were you asked questions to produce certain documents during that phase?
Yes.
And did you provide any of those translations, those written translations that you received?
What I remember doing, and you're counsel's asking these questions, I remember sending Mr. Byrne a huge box of documents after I got that request. So there's thousands of documents in evidence in this case. And the documents I was able to find, I sent to Mr. Byrne.
Did you send those translations that you received, those written translations, to Mr. Byrne?
I don't recall what was sent. I mean, we're talking thousands of documents, and, you know, I hardly remember what happened last week, and with this condition I have with my migraine headaches, it's getting more difficult. So I don't recall.
No, I sympathize, sir. And my question really is whether you would accept my representation that there are no translations of those official documents.
I'm not going to accept that because I can't verify it. I don't recall.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to paragraph 54 of your first witness statement. And here you say that you were well aware of the demands of environmental permitting regime in Costa Rica.
Okay.
Is that still your testimony today?
55?
54, sir.
54. Let me read it. Yes.
And I assume with your advisors, they would have informed you of those demands, correct?
Yes.
And such as not providing false information.
I reject the assertion that I ever did provide false information.
Don't worry, sir, I'm not making that assertion.
Well, you just said it.
No, I'm asking you whether in their
Please, if the
communication...
witness could wait for the question.
sorry.
No overlap for me, sir.
Sorry.
let me repeat the question and
Go ahead.
then we can answer it again. So I assume with your advisors that they would have informed you of the demands of the environmental permitting regime in Costa Rica. Is that correct?
Yes.
And they would have advised you in relation to whether you should not provide false information. Just the standard of whether or not one provides false information or not in any permitting process.
In recalling what, quickly recalling conversations I had with my initial advisor, Juan Carlos Escovel, I don't ever having that conversation with him.
And were you ever advised what your obligations were when submitting the D1 application?
Well, again, I'm not Costa Rican. I don't speak, read, or write Spanish. At all times, I relied upon professionals, attorneys, people that were engaged in the activities of taking a project through the environmental impact studies and onto the permits. So I was relying on these professionals. I never was involved in any of that. I know that, and I rely totally on the professionals. As you said, I don't speak Spanish, I don't read Spanish, I don't write Spanish. And so I rely totally on the professionals that I had employed.
And you do not recall, or it didn't happen, this is my question, whether you received any advice regarding your disclosure obligations in the D1 application?
I don't recall any of that whatsoever, because my understanding from the lawyers and later Mr. Musio was that they were the team that had expertise in shepherding a project through the permitting process, and they knew the requirements. Frankly, during that whole exercise, I never even spoke to anyone from Satena at all. Because except with the exception of Luis Chavez, who was director of operations much later, which I talked to him with my attorney Manuel Ventura later, and we had discussions with him. But during the early phases of this whole permitting process, I never even talked to anybody at these agencies, ever.
No, and we'll come on to the agencies in a moment, sir. My questions are in relation to you, your discussions with your attorneys.
Well, excuse me. You do understand those discussions are privileged, don't you?
We'll come to that in a moment, sir.
Well, no, the moment was right now. You just said it.
Yeah, that's okay,
Are
sir.
those discussions, are attorney-client privileged discussions privileged or not?
I'm the one asking the questions today,
Well,
sir. We'll come to them in a moment.
If the witness could refrain from overlap.
Excuse me.
Mr.
I'm sorry,
Leatley is the one asking the questions at this moment.
I'm sorry, excuse
So
me.
please restrict yourself in
I will.
answering questions. If there are some issues that your counsel wish to object, he will do so in his own time.
All right. My apologies to the panel.
The process this week, sir, sorry, I would like an answer to my previous question. We're talking about the exchanges you had with your attorneys. I'm just going to ask about the existence of those conversations.
Okay.
Did you have conversations with your attorneys regarding your duty to disclose in the D1 application? You may not remember the content of the conversations, but do you remember them actually occurring?
I honestly do not remember any of those conversations. What I remember is conversations like what the steps you had to take. My understanding was that initially you had to get the Satena approval, and Satena, my understanding, was the only agency that was given the authority by the government and the courts to issue environmental viability permits and the resolutions for those project permit. And once they were issued, then they had the force of law. And what I remember was...
Sorry to interrupt you, sir.
I'm getting there. Excuse me.
So
I'm getting there.
just so I can help steer
My
you.
next statement, go ahead.
Okay, very good.
So my understanding was, from the professionals, the lawyers, was that Satena had a bunch of check the boxes. They had to get approvals from various agencies all the way down the line. And one of the important was from Manai, who had to give Satena a clearance letter stating there was no environmental problems with the project site. So my recollection, Counsel, is that the lawyers that I engaged went through in detail with me about the requirements that we needed, what we had to do from A to Z to get the permits. And there was a lot of check the boxes in there.
Let's turn to the first tab 1, in the folder sitting on your desk. And this is the D1 application, which is Exhibit R13.
Okay?
And just keep it on the first page. Do you recognize this document, sir?
Yes? Well, okay. I recognize my signature on the document.
Right.
Okay.
And so you recognize that this is the D1 application that was filed in relation to the condominium section. Is that right? If you look at the top left box, box 1,
Yeah, okay, yes,
you see that, sir?
yes.
And you've just confirmed that's your signature at the bottom.
That's my signature, yes.
And there was a... And there's a legal declaration, in the middle of the page where you see that paragraph where the text starts, do you see that, sir?
Yes?
That's in Spanish. I won't ask you to read what it means, but were you ever advised what that meant?
No.
Okay, thank you. Did you ever receive any legal advice in relation to the box checking exercise that you described? And I mean written legal advice.
I don't recall, but if there's a document and evidence that you can refer me to, I'd be happy to look at it.
Well, that's where I'm going, sir. I'm assuming as a prudent businessman you would have received advice in writing because you're making these applications on behalf of a number of investors or potential investors, correct?
I'm not denying that I received the advice. I can't recall every document that I signed or reviewed.
Now, your counsel has advised during the course of this arbitration, they've advised you to provide all documents that were requested by this tribunal, correct?
Yes.
And have you disclosed all the documents to your lawyers that you were asked to disclose in this arbitration?
I believe I have.
But your lawyers didn't disclose any memoranda of advice or letters of advice in this arbitration, did they?
What lawyers are you speaking about?
I'm talking about, well, first of all, I'm saying your counsel, who's sitting on your left, Mr.
Okay,
Byrne
yeah,
and his
yeah.
team,
All right.
that they did not, in this arbitration, disclose any memoranda of advice or letters of legal advice from you to or from your attorneys in Costa Rica. Is that correct?
I don't recall. If you, as I said, if you have a document that I could look at, I'd be happy to, but I don't recall.
Well, sir, there's a document. Have you heard of the phrase Red Fern Schedule?
I don't believe so.
So Red Fern Schedule is a name that's given to a document which helps the disclosure phase in this arbitration. And there was a request that Costa Rica made in that process. The request was, and I'd like to read out, this is respondent's request number 4.
Is it in this book?
It isn't, sir.
Okay.
Yes, I believe it is. I beg your pardon. Yes, tab
Where?
2, page 12.
Tab 2, page 12. Are these pages numbered here? Oh,
We'll help you with it, sir, because it's going to have to be read sideways, I'm afraid.
all right.
Thank you. So, page 12, there's a little page 12 down at the bottom, and you'll see, yes, the page you're holding, sir. And I'm going to read out for you the request. So this is a request that was made from us to your attorneys in this arbitration. And the request is for documents or communications received by claimants, including, without being an exhaustive list, advice provided to their directors, representatives, agents and employees and or related persons between 2000 and 2010 relating to aspects of the legal and regulatory regime of real estate development projects in Costa Rica and or the requirements and enforcement of environmental laws in Costa Rica, including by way of example, opinions, legal notes and due diligence reports indicating the authors of such documents and communications. And the tribunal requested by response, respecting the privilege that can exist, and obviously does exist between an attorney and a client, that there be what's called a privilege log. And that's a standard procedure. Were you told about this privilege log process, sir?
By whom?
By your attorneys in this arbitration?
I don't recall.
So let's turn to tab 3. And this is exhibit R399. This is the privilege log that your counsel submitted to the tribunal on July the 22nd of this year. Is that correct, sir? Or can you recognize that?
Okay.
And there's only one entry in that box, and that's dated the 6th of March 2006 from a firm called Lacle Gutierrez Abogados, sent
Yeah.
to you, and it's in relation to the ownership structure at Las Olas. Is that correct, sir?
I'd have to see that document before I answer that question. I'm not sure what what this advice was about. Do you have, you have a copy of that document?
Actually, that document is not the focus of my questions. It's the lack of any other documents that's the focus of my questions.
Oh, well, you didn't tell me that.
So you've just testified that there was advice, there was written legal advice that you received, but we've received nothing in this privilege log, which you yourself you're about to assert privilege. So I wonder, sir, you've either violated the tribunal's orders or you're not telling the truth now, but I'd like to know which one it is.
I reject both of those assertions.
You understand the framing of my question, though, sir. You were under an obligation, as were your attorneys, to disclose, at least in a privilege log, all legal memoranda that qualified under the respondent's request number 4. That's how these arbitrations function.
As I told you, I'll restate this again. I sent a huge box of documents to the attorneys, that what I could find, the files, and whatever documents I had was in that box.
And so would you say those legal advice that you received would have been in that box? The legal advice, the written legal advice that we were talking about before?
Well, sir, I mean, I can't say that this is not the only legal advice I ever received. I mean, I can't say for a fact that this was not the only thing that I ever got.
You
from
didn't have a
an attorney.
discussion with your lawyers about what legal advice you'd received? And when I say your lawyers, I mean Mr. Byrne and his team.
Yeah, we had discussions about what legal advice I received, but a lot of that legal advice was in the form of conversations.
And in writing was your testimony earlier.
Well, this is one of the ones in the writing. I do recognize that.
Yes, and there were others then, sir. Was that right?
There's
There were other written communications as well. You testified earlier. You said there were other written
Well,
communications.
don't put words in my mouth.
Excuse me, the witness needs to wait for the question to be fully asked.
I'm sorry. You want to ask? I'm up or you?
I don't know who's got the ball, sir. Let me ask a question,
ahead.
and then we're clear. Let me take a step back, because I don't want to take too long on this. You should have been consulted by your lawyers to disclose any legal advice to be provided in that privilege log. And I'd like to understand what your testimony is. Is it that you did not receive any written advice at all, or that you did, but it just doesn't appear in that log?
My recollection is that I do recognize this document. And I don't recall any other documents I ever got from an attorney right now. I may have, but I don't recall any, that it was a written legal advice. Most of the time, the attorneys I dealt with would just give me verbal advice and verbal directions. So I can't, I think if there's nothing more than this, that's the only thing I had in the way of legal advice.
Okay, well, that's quite different to the testimony you just provided a moment ago,
Well, maybe
sir.
I did. Okay, let me slow up because I don't want to hear that again. Then I misunderstood you.
Let me rephrase a new question.
No, well, I misunderstood you prior to this.
Have you received written legal advice from Costa Rican lawyers or any other lawyers regarding your development of the project that would have squared with the request that I read out to you from that red phone
My
schedule?
recollection, let me pause. My recollection is, if this is the only thing here in this log, that's all I've gotten that I can recall.
That you can recall.
That I can recall, yes.
And I'm asking you whether you received written legal advice from your attorneys in Costa Rica.
I can confirm I got this written legal advice. I can't confirm I got any others.
You just don't know.
I don't. My answer is that most of the legal advice I received from my attorneys was verbal.
So now it's most.
Okay, I understand that the lawyers like to pick at words here.
So I'm just trying to establish what advice you received, because I think it's quite important for your case.
Well, no, well, the
And I'm wondering
question is
whether-
what advice I received, then, we're talking about written legal advice,
Yes, sir,
right?
we're
Okay.
absolutely
All right,
talking about
here's my
written legal
answer.
advice.
Here's my answer. The only written legal advice I'm aware I received was this one piece of this one advice that's appearing in this log.
So in relation to all of the years that you've gone through, which has clearly had its toll on you from your earlier testimony, you never received any written legal advice, never any written legal advice in relation to the enforcement actions that were taken against you, no written legal advice in relation to the injunctions that were placed on you and the property. You never had anything in writing from your lawyers. That's your testimony today, sir, is it?
Not that I can recall it at this point. No, if it's not in here, I sent everything I had to my attorney, and if this is the only thing here, then that's all I have.
Could you turn to tab 4, sir? This is exhibit C113. This is a letter addressed to CNAC. Do you have that document, sir?
I do.
And the stamp of Minai CNAC indicates the top right-hand corner, 23rd of February 2011. You see that, sir?
Yes.
Now, if you just turn the pages and you see that you look at page 4, you see there's the master plan of the project. Yes, they're on your left, sir.
Yes.
That's the master plan for the project, correct? Or an illustration of.
Okay.
And at the penultimate page of the document, let's go to the back, to the last page of the entire document, sir. You'll see your signature, is that right?
Yes.
And then there's I'm going to read we go to page 13 of that same document, and I'll try and identify it. You look at the top right-hand corner, you see a stamp, and you see that you should be looking for 330.
Oh, it's going the wrong way. Okay.
You see that page? You've got that page there, sir?
I do.
And we have a translation, so if you want to turn up to the last page in tab 4. Yeah, so you're in the right tab, sir.
The last page.
Yeah, just go to the last page and you'll see behind the blue sheet of paper, and keep going. There, sir. We've prepared a translation of what I want to read to you, and your counsel can obviously raise any questions of my translation. Now, the page that we were on, page 13, which I would invite members of the tribunal to keep on, has a list. Now, there's in the middle of the page, there's a pruebas, and then there's a sentence in upper caps, and it says evidence that demonstrates the legality of the construction process undertaken by my company. This is, of course, your document that you've signed. And then go down the list and you see A, B, C, D, and E. And then here it says, copy of the geological survey conducted by the company Geotest that concludes that there are no wetlands or floods within the property. You see that, sir?
Yes.
And this is the Proti report.
Okay.
Are you familiar with that term, sir?
I am.
And according to this letter, you submitted the Geotest Proti report to CNAC, correct?
No, not correct. This was prepared by, well, as you see, Sebastian Vargas, attorney at law. I believe this letter was written in response to the illegal shutdown notice I got from CNAC in a previous date in February. So he drafted this letter and had me sign it.
Right. You signed it, and it's saying that the evidence that was submitted, the proof, rather,
Well, you know what?
that demonstrates that you have a legal construction, you included the Proti report, right?
As I said, I signed this letter. I did not send it. This was sent by Sebastian. Vargas.
Was the content explained to you before you signed?
No, it was not.
Now, this geotest Proti report was not submitted as part of your D1 application, was it?
I think the D1 application should speak for itself. I mean, I have no idea.
Okay. Well then, I think, sir, it's been fairly well established, although I'm happy for your counsel to ask you any questions if he disagrees, that the D1 application that we were looking at before, which is at tab 5, which I think you've seen already, does not include the Proti geotest report.
Documents speak for themselves. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Thank you, sir. In fact, the only time that this document, the geotest Proti report, was submitted, was sent after you had obtained the environmental viability for the condo section. Correct?
Repeat that question again.
Yes, sir. The only time that the Proti geotest report went to a public authority was when you sent it after you had obtained the environmental viability for the condo section. Is that correct?
I never sent the Prodi report to anybody. As this document demonstrates, this letter was written by my attorney, Sebastian Vargas. He had me sign it. He didn't do a translation of this document. He just told me this was a document that we were objecting to the illegal shutdown letter he sent me on earlier than this February 23rd date. So, I never sent this letter. I signed it,
Yes, sir.
but he sent it, and he wrote it. I didn't write this letter. As you know, I don't write or speak Spanish.
Now,
Again, this is a situation where I'm relying on attorneys, all right? Now, maybe the best thing for him to have done was give me a translation in English. Say, David, read this thoroughly and make sure you understand it thoroughly and then sign it. He didn't do that. He just wrote it. He told me, again, confirming like what I said, that most of the time this was what the attorneys told me was verbal. Maybe they didn't want to take the time to explain it, do the translation from Spanish to English and explain things to me. They said they just put documents in front of me, said verbally what they were for, and I signed them, and he sent them. And if you look at the fax number, that's not my fax number, that's his fax number.
And let me just to conclude the point, so what I would also, you said the documents speak for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We obtained a copy of the Proti report, the geotest Proti report, because it was part of that document that you've got in your hands,
Okay.
but it was not from the D1 application. Would you
Again,
have
I
any
never-
basis to disagree with that, sir?
I have no basis to disagree with it. I mean, documents speak for themselves, facts speak for themselves. But what it's important to know is, I never read the Prodi report. I never even became aware of this Prodi report until it was brought up by the respondent in one of their memorials.
So you have been sitting in this room this morning during the testimony of Mr. Morera, is that correct?
Yes.
And you will have heard him testify in relation to the shooting that you were subject to, correct?
I did not have to listen to his testimony about the shooting. I lived through it.
I'm sure, sir. And there was an exchange about security. I wondered, did you ever contract a private security or looking at a private security firm in order to return to Costa Rica?
Well, I think Mr. Moria testified he was the one that was inquiring about that in Costa Rica.
He did, sir. In fact, he said two things. The first was that he consulted with the public authorities for security, and secondly, he consulted with the US Embassy. And what struck me, sir, is I wondered whether you had sought any private security arrangements.
What time frame?
Whatever time frame you wish.
When I was in, after the shooting, when I was in Costa Rica, yes, I did.
Hmm. And what did they say to you?
No, it's not what they said to me, it's what I said to them, that, look, I want you to protect me. I was just almost killed a couple days ago, and I need to engage you to protect me.
And what did they then say?
Well, that's your job. I mean, they had guns, and they, you know.
So
that
you
was-
hired a private security firm.
I did.
Hmm. And did they do their job?
I'm sitting here today, so I think they did.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now, Mr. Aven, you say in paragraph 74 of your second witness statement that you were working in good faith with the government. That's your second witness statement, paragraph 74.
Thank you. Appreciate it. '74, okay. Excuse me one second. You want me to read it?
No, sir, I just want to
Oh,
take
okay.
you to a... Yes, so the third line down, I'm just going to read a part of this sentence. This was a multi-million-dollar project, and we were working in good faith with the government. Do you see that sentence?
74?
Yes, sir. So it's
Is this-
split with a quote, and then there's a second part of it.
Whoa. I think
Second witness statement.
74 says, Ms. Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes. So the third line down of that last part of paragraph 74.
Okay?
And so you say that we were working in good faith with the government. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And in the same paragraph 74, you say that you never ignored notifications from local agencies, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And is that still your testimony today?
It is.
And in paragraph 150 of your first witness statement,
Went down the wrong pipe. Thank you.
paragraph 150, you say that on the 14th of February 2011, you received a letter from Mr. Luis Picado requesting an injunction against the Las Olas project. Is that right?
That's right.
And this is what's being known as the CNAC injunction, correct?
Yes.
And in paragraph 157, in the first witness statement, you say in the immediate aftermath of receiving this CNAC injunction that, quote, at this point we were advised that the CNAC notification contained in the letter sent by Mr. Picado, sent out to me in February of 2011, was of no legal effect because CNAC did not have jurisdiction over construction permits or a development's operation. You see that, those words there, sir?
Yes.
And I assume this was legal advice you said you took.
Okay. Now this is going to be one of those on-the-fly adjustments I'm going to make with this that he didn't say. I agree with that statement, but what I was told by my attorney was that Satena was the agency that was granted the powers by the government and the courts to issue environmental liability permits.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir, but I've got a very specific question. So
Yes.
we'll see if we need to come to this.
Okay.
My question was, you refer to advice. You say in the first line of paragraph 157, at this point, comma, we were advised.
Yes.
And my question is simply, was that legal advice?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Because ignoring an injunction was going to implicate both you and your fellow investors, correct? So it obviously made sense you sought legal advice.
My attorney, Sebastian Vargas, said that this injunction that CNAC sent out was not valid.
I'm sorry, sir?
The legal advice I received from my attorney, Sebastian Vargas,
Mm-hmm.
said that the CNAC notification to shut down the project in February of 2011 was not a legal document.
Was that provided in writing, sir, that legal advice?
No, again, it was represented to me verbally, and that resulted in the letter that we just reviewed that Sebastian Vargas wrote to CNAC,
Yes.
which was many pages, as you know. He briefly, and basically, he said, look, this is illegal, and I'm gonna file something with whoever. And he drafted that letter, and he had me come in, explain basically what this is. It's not a legal document, and say, sign this, and I'm gonna get it filed, and that's what I did.
But no written legal advice to you or your fellow investors?
Just verbal.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to paragraph 107 of your second witness statement. 107.
You should get a chair and just sit here.
You have that there, sir? Here you say, quote, that you never received notice of a subsequent trial date. We're in the context of your criminal proceedings here. This is your second witness statement. Do you remember this, sir?
Yes.
Do you wish to make any changes here?
No, I don't think, I don't recall ever getting notice. Normally, the notice was sent by the court. They would email to me.
So can you turn to tab 6 in your binder? And this is exhibit R350. And there's a translation, which I would encourage you to look at. So this is R350 is the notification of a new trial to you dated the 16th of October 2013. And this is an email the court sent to your registered email, correct?
Where's the email address?
So if you go to the last page of the original, and then you see it's circled, that's david3a@gmail.com.
Yes, that's my email address.
Okay.
But I never received this email.
You never received that. Can you turn to tab 7? This is exhibit C166.
Okay, yes, I see it.
In fact, you refer to this email, this document, in paragraph 237 of your first witness statement, and this email was sent to you to the same email address
That's
as
correct.
the criminal court's notification.
That's correct.
So you did get this one, but you didn't get the other one.
Well, we all understand that any email can go into a spam folder. It can get bounced, and it's not a guaranteed way of communication. So, so that's why I did get this one, but I did not get this one.
And then in paragraph 240 of your first witness statement, you say that after Costa Rica issued the international arrest warrant, so your first witness statement, paragraph 240.
Slow up, I'm not there yet. Just a
Okay.
minute. Which one is this now?
Paragraph 240,
Okay.
and you say that after Costa Rica issued the international arrest warrant, you heard, quote, rumors that the court was also considering making a request that Interpol issue a red notice against you.
Yes.
And Mr. Aven, you and your criminal counsel reviewed the international arrest warrant, correct? This-
What criminal counsel?
You didn't have a criminal lawyer.
What date, what time frame are you talking about?
The time that you received this document, sir. Let's go to it. Tab 8, exhibit R150.
I'm there.
Yes, and this is the international arrest warrant issued by you, against you. And I wonder if you can turn to the last page, last line. And there's a translation. So this is tab 8, exhibit R150, there's a translation there. We have a translation of the last line, which is say, it is hereby ordered to communicate Interpol of the resolved.
Can I see it?
Did you see that at the time, sir?
No, I never saw this document before.
You never saw this before?
I don't believe so. I may have seen it in production, but how was I supposed to get this document?
You didn't receive it from your attorneys?
Which attorneys?
You were being represented during the criminal proceedings, right, sir?
What's the date of this document? You know? Is it dated? Is this document dated? I don't see a date.
I don't have a date with you here, sir, but
So how am I supposed to answer a question if we don't know a time frame? I don't mean to ask you a question, but I'm...
let's move on, sir.
Okay.
In Mr. Burns' opening remarks about the Las Olas project, he remarked that you had hired a consultancy group called Norton Consulting and EDSA.
Yes.
And he said that they looked at your investment, quote, and I'm quoting from Mr. Burns' remarks, which included a conceptual design with luxury beachfront villas, mid-range townhomes, smaller villas, and a beach club, correct? Is that a fair summary from Mr. Burns? Mr. Burns, sorry.
I don't recall. Did you just say that recently, or just now?
He said it on Monday, sir.
Oh, then I missed it.
Okay.
Sorry, I think he's misunderstanding the question. I think
You
the
mean
question
on
from Mr.
Monday?
Leathley is, does the description that I made sound accurate to you?
Oh, yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. And he said that based on this view of the Las Olas project, you and other claimants made the decision to develop the project. Is that right, sir? I'll tell you what, let me assist you. Let's go to paragraph 41 of your first witness statement. I'm sorry, yes, your first witness statement.
$41, you want to read it?
No, I'm just going to summarize it, if I may, sir, but you can correct me if you think I'm mis-summarizing it. You say that you hired Norton Consulting and EDSA as part of your assessment of the business options available to you and your co-investors.
Yes.
And just so I'm right in the timeline, Norton Consulting was hired in 2004, correct?
Correct.
Which was after you'd acquired the investment for $1.647 million, $1,647,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
And as part of Norton Consulting and EDSA, they went, as part of that, Norton Consulting and EDSA went to visit Las Olas.
Yes.
And this is around September 2004, correct?
I'm not sure about the time frame. I'd have to see when the report came out. Marco Larrera and Rick Norton, my recollection is they came down to Costa Rica a couple different times, and they were on site. They studied the site. At one time, There was a guy from Etz's office from Fort Lauderdale, and they're a renowned land planning company, and we were talking, and they were looking at the site, and this one guy, I forget who he was, but he's with Marco Herrera, and he made a comment. I was asking him about what he thought about the topography and the lay of the land. He said it was beautiful. I said, you think, you don't think there's any environmental problems with this, do you, I hope? And he says, no, he says, I don't see any problems with that.
And so they
just
spent-
from visually, just visually. You
And
know.
they spent time surveying the property and taking photos of the land, right?
Yes.
And in fact, I want to put up on the screen for you, sir. This is one of the pictures they took. That looks like some of the terrain of Las Olas to me. Would you agree, sir?
I can't confirm that. I mean, it's terrains down there, as you know, a lot of them look the same, but
This is from the Norton Consulting report.
If you represent, it's in the Norton Consulting report, and then I'll say yes,
You'd say yes.
yes.
And let's look at another photo. This is also in the Norton Consulting report. That looks like the beach. I've also been to the site, so I wondered if you'd agree if that looks like the beach view. Very difficult to, of course, say. I'm asking you to define waves. But so they charge you a substantial sum,
Yes,
$150,000 US, correct?
yes,
And they were assisting you in planning how to maximize the land use and to obviously make it a profitable investment, correct?
there was a dual purpose with that. They did provide some of that kind of advice, but there was two parts of that. There was ETSA and there was Norton. So there was a extensive marketing study done to determine what the values were of the real estate projects and what things were selling for in what areas. And then Marco Herrera's job with ETSA was specifically to look at the Las Olas site and to determine what could be done with it. And also to determine, so we were trying to figure out two things: the types of structures we could build, condos, homes, and also the price range that we could sell them for.
And I mean, these guys are experts, right, in terms of integrating the natural features of the land so as to help the design of the overall project.
Yeah, they were land planners. I wouldn't say that they were experts in project development. They were more like land planners. They gave you kind of initial read of what possibly could be done with the land.
I wonder if you can turn to tab 9. This is exhibit C30, and I can sense the eyes burning into the back of my head from the tribunal.
And it's more a concern, not as regards council and Mr. Aven, because I'm sure there's a lot of adrenaline running in both, but it's more of a concern for reporters and interpreters, because it's way past lunchtime and they've been going on for almost 5 hours now, 4 hours and a half. So whenever, if you're going to conclude within the next very few minutes your examination, I'm sure they would be satisfied with taking a break in just a very few minutes. Otherwise, perhaps we should find a break.
Thank you, sir. There will be a very natural breaking point at the end in 2 minutes, yes. Thank you. Let's look at tab 9. This is exhibit 3C30. Do you have that there, sir?
Is this the ETSA? Oh, no, wait, let's see. Sorry. Yes,
And you see the front cover there, sir?
yes.
And there are photos, the first two are the ones you've already seen.
Yes,
Can you tell me what we're looking at on the right photo, please?
I don't know. I can't place any of these, I can't play any of these photos.
We're putting it on the screen. Looks quite like a wetland, doesn't it, sir?
No, how can,
No?
It doesn't, I can't place that, I really can't. I mean, I know the project fairly well,
Okay,
but I
well,
really can't place that.
let's turn to slide 5 of the report. Let's get into the report. This is the report they prepared.
Okay, go ahead.
And this slide is called the Land Use Summary.
Are we on a page number?
So you want to go to slide 5, which is not page 5, it's slide 5. The number's on the bottom right. And this introduces the property before the report analyses the options available to you as investors. You see that, sir?
What part you looking at now? I got to slide 5. Are you talking about the graphic on the left?
Yes, the graphic on the left.
Okay,
You see the water features there, sir?
yes.
And on the screen, what I'm going to do is put up from tab 10, this is figure 2 from the Casey report. Just so we can compare and contrast.
Oh, this one?
No, keep your finger in slide 5 for now. Now, look at slide 5. You see that, sir?
Yes.
And if you can look up by comparison, so I can count about 5 of the water feature areas that also match the wetlands that have been identified by Casey's report. For example, the southwest, which is around Casey Wetland 1, on the west side, which is around the area of Casey Wetland 2, on the southeast, which is where Casey Wetland 8 is, the northeast, which is where Casey Wetland 6 is, and the northwest, which is where Casey Wetland 5 is. Would you agree with that comparison?
I don't agree that they're wetlands.
Okay, that's fine, sir, but you'd agree that the
What are you
comparison...
asking me to agree to?
I'm asking you whether the location of the water features that have been included in the land use summary match where the wetlands are that have been identified by the Casey experts.
Well, you know what I would say with that? Maybe Casey saw this graphic and he was just copied it. I don't know. I have no clue. I have no idea.
Well, your lawyers can ask that question of Mr. Owen when he's
Yeah,
here.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. To be sure, Marco Luera and ESTA was not a environmental firm. They were a land planner, so
Right.
this was their plan.
And in fact, if you read on the design, it's a little hard to read, but on the southwest and the west side, it says existing low area drainage potential lake feature. For the southeast and the northeast, it says existing low area and drainage corridor. And then in the northwest, it says existing low area potential lake feature. So these specialists are identifying areas that at least would be suitable to develop what would be natural or water features for the property, right?
Well, that was their concept, apparently. You know.
And just for the record, slide 6, slide 45, and slide 47 identify similar features. Slide 45, which is the conceptual land use.
Let me keep my finger here.
Do you have slide 45 there, sir? That includes 4 features, 4 water features, including, look at the southwest corner, sir. Quite a large area of water that's proposed.
Well, let me just say that my recollection, this was a report done many years ago, but my recollection was that
I'm sorry, sir, could you speak a little bit more into the microphone?
I'm sorry, I got this. This was done many years ago. My recollection was that Marco Luera and I visited the Los Sueños site, and he liked the water features. I don't know if any of you gentlemen were the Los Sueños site, but they had many water features in that resort as well. So he may have gotten some inspiration from the water features that Los Sueños put in around their project. and incorporated them into this project. I don't, but I can tell you that the areas that are indicated on this graphic 5 on the left and on the right, specifically the ones on the left, was an area that both Mr. Bailey and Dr. Cubero both examined extensively, and they said that was not a wetland area. So that's their expert opinion.
Oh,
This-
so they're experts in wetlands now.
Who?
These designers you're referring to.
No, I said Mr.
Mr.
Bailey,
Bailey.
and Dr. Cubero.
Yes, we'll hear from them later this week. I just wanted to.
No,
ask-
I'm just making a distinction that there's a difference between a wetland and a wet area, but this could have been just a conceptual rendering of what you could do with the area if something like what Los Sueños did with their project. They had a lot of water features.
Absolutely,
already.
sir. And just for the record, I'm not suggesting that this map is representing defined wetlands as defined by Norton Consulting. I'm just identifying the fact that they are proposing water features in exactly the locations where wetlands have been identified by Casey. And in slide 43 of the study, they say this is the proposed integration of water features into the land plan.
Yeah, that's what I said. We visited Los Sueños, and I think they liked the water features at Los Sueños, and so they wanted to incorporate some of the water features into the Las Olas project.
So does it strike you as coincidental, purely coincidental then, that these water features, some of them of which are a significant size, happen to be where the wetlands have been identified in this arbitration?
Those areas have not been identified by our experts. They've
Well,
been identified by your experts, right?
Well, we
I'm
will-
sorry, I don't mean to ask.
I
you
know we're
questions.
disagreeing about that as well, sir. But okay, I don't think I have any further questions. Thank you, sir.
Sorry, is that further questions at all, or just for now? Just so I know. That's it.
No further questions at all. I finished my cross-examination. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Leatley. Now would be a good time to take a break, and break should be lunch break. So I would ask that Mr. Aven is sequestered. You understand, Mr. Aven, that during the next break, lunch break, you will be asked to be by yourself. So simply to avoid any contact with any of your attorneys or other colleagues, because you're still under the period of examination. We will continue, as I had anticipated earlier, with the redirect on the part of your counsel. Any questions further afterwards from the tribunal? So we will restart when we stay at 2:45. Thank you.
Okay. Got it. Is it?